to honor your time, I think we should just get started, guys. And we can always repeat something if we get some new folks dropping in a couple of minutes. But the title of our session is Frosty but Firm. And I would like to say, imagine Frosty the Snowman, though, with a nice, warm, hot cup of cocoa, talking to his clients in the North Pole. So I want to give you guys a little background on me. I've been a licensed realtor for 20 years. I've been in sales, since I was in high school selling Cutco knives to all my best friend's parents. So I did start with the Cutco folks very early on, turning pennies into corkscrews. And I knew this was my vocation, to communicate and to help people make big decisions. And I was in the car business for 15 years. Started out in 91 during the middle of a recession when I graduated college, and there were no real jobs. So I thought, let me go to one of the last bastion of pure sales and learn on the showroom floor how this works. And I worked for a real, believe it or not, family-oriented dealership, and was really well trained. Back in that day, in the early 90s, some of the best salesmen in sales were in the car business, making 250 to 500,000 a year in their 90s. These guys were making that kind of money in the 70s and 80s. It wasn't until the advent of the internet that their commissions got compressed, and a lot of the talent went to mortgage and real estate. And so I was trained by some of the best to do it the right way. Nothing shady, always rapport-based, always ethical, and always big picture. I then worked for Toyota Motor Sales for 5 years and trained salespeople all around the country, including general sales managers and GMs, and then went back to the dealership with a dream of owning a dealership one day, only to find out that I probably needed $3 to $5 million in capital to start a dealership. So there was a huge barrier of entry there. And then I started rehabbing some houses, and my best friend from college, who had been licensed for already a dozen years, was dripping on me. And I kept being resistant. And as we started rehabbing houses together, I started to say, wow, I kind of like this. Maybe I should do this full time. And I left the car business 20 years ago and got into real estate. So it was pretty cool. So our team has sold probably 1,500 to 2,000 houses. And I would say about 60% of our business is based on repeat referral and database type business. So we don't want to just be a deal slayer and conquest a new client and sell them a house. We really want, our goal is to penetrate networks. So we know in real estate, if we have the luxury of helping a really great family or a great human, would you guys agree there's a pretty good chance that they have great family members and great friends and great coworkers, right? And once we build up our book of business, we can, guys, we all have to pay our bills on a monthly basis. And sometimes we work with people that we say to ourselves after settlement, I got to take a shower after that one. It wasn't the most pleasant transaction. If I had to choose, I probably wouldn't do business with them again, right? So the goal is to really help people out at a high level so you can penetrate their networks. And the beauty of our business is to be able to choose who our future clients are. That's the luxury we're trying to work towards. So why do I set up that preamble the way I did? It's because I think I approach negotiations as a big picture thing. My goal is to do business with either my database or perfect strangers, but we know when we're meeting new people, we want them to quickly know, like, and trust us. So we know we have to get into rapport with them. I figure I can move people off of their spot a lot easier if I know a lot about them, if they know, like, and trust me, if they know I'm not approaching the transaction with commission breath. I'm approaching this transaction as a consultant, a true leader in my industry, a high degree of trust where they believe when I tell them, look, I want you guys to know I'm going to call balls and strikes during our time together. I'm going to push back when I think you might be off track, and I'm going to agree with you when I think you're right. And to build that trust so they know that you're not just trying to talk them into something is really crucial. So let's set it up. Let's just say I meet someone at an open house, right? It is a perfect stranger. We know that now I'm competing in the arena of where maybe they went to 3 other opens, maybe they met a realtor on the Tinder of real estate last night on Zillow, maybe someone from Redfin showed them a house, but they don't really have a realtor yet. So not only are they shopping for a house, they're shopping for a realtor. Would you guys agree with that? So we want to get into rapport with them. So the house is almost a backdrop, right? The listing is a billboard just to meet people. I'm just out there to meet wonderful humans. So when people are coming to my open house, sometimes you might have 2 or 3 groups come at the same time and you got to make a choice. You kind of get a vibe of like, hey, I think they're my people. Hey, I really like their energy walking in the door. Oh my God, their daughter's just beautiful. Look how energetic that little 8-year-old girl is. I would love to work with that family. So sometimes you got to make a choice. If you're lucky, it's one-on-one. You really get to know them. Like I said, the house is a backdrop. So you guys are familiar with the Ford method, correct? The Ford method to get to know people?
No.
Yeah. Someone look it up on Google and put it in the chat. What is Ford? Because I want you guys to be interactive today. Ford is one of the tried and true methods to get to know people. Let's talk about it real quick. It's a method of conversation. Does anybody have it yet? Because I believe if you see it and you read it and we talk about it, you'll have a higher level of retention. We're going to admit people. Okay. All right. So we're into the Ford. Good. Anybody got it? I love it, Victoria. Yes, thank you. Even if you drive a Chevy, you can use the Ford method: family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. Get that tattooed on your forearm after this session. You can always refer to it at the open house. Roll up your sleeve. So you want to get people talking about themselves, all right? And you want to buy into the Ford method to get to know people on a quick level, because that's how you get a perfect stranger to know, like, and eventually trust you. And we know people are going to do all the data-driven things. They're going to crunch the numbers. They're going to, possibly interview a couple agents. But at the end of the day, it's going to be something from their gut that allows them to move forward. And it's really that getting to know them, because people don't care what you do until they know how much you care about them. So the Ford method will really get to know them, because my goal at the open house, I'm just using that as a basis for our conversation today, is that I'm going to be able to set myself up for a buyer consultation or a listing consultation. Now, the next step is, once I've built rapport, I've got them in my CRM, Command, Brivity, whatever CRM you do, I am calling them at the end of my open house on Sunday. I'm not waiting until Monday, because all hell breaks loose on Monday. Monday can turn into Wednesday sometimes, and Wednesday can turn into I didn't follow up with them a week later, and then they're like, who are you again? So I'm calling them. I always leave an extra hour after my open house for buyer seller consultations, meet at a coffee shop, or just follow-up calls. My goal then is to schedule a kind of an introductory call. And for this purpose, I would say it's a pre-qualification call. So whether it's a listing appointment, I'm doing what we call in our team a pre-listing interview, or it's a buyer's consultation, I really want to almost answer all the questions, make it all about them, the house, their dreams, their timelines, more about the Ford, what's important to you about living next to that park. I'm finding out everything. I'm kind of doing, at this point, investigative real estate. And I am also doing tie downs, right? Because once I've asked all of these questions, we're going to ask a gazillion questions, and then I'm going to reaffirm and tie down, right? So Karen, tell me why it's important that you're 3 blocks from the school. Tell me more about that. Well, and I'm taking notes on their answers. Guess what, guys? This is a narrative that you can use later once, hopefully, knock on wood, you sign a buyer agency agreement with them. You sign a listing agreement with them because we've got their motivation. And it's really ironic. I think the basic theory is the houses sell themselves, right? What someone was thinking about for the last 6 months, 1 or 2 years, they put a tremendous amount of thought about why they wanted to do something. But isn't it ironic that I think in general, 90% of the time, people aren't moving forward because of fear or emotion or someone else is in their ear. And I think our job is to be a Sherpa guide to help them get to the top of the mountain to finish their thought. Someone deliberated for 1 to 2 years on why they felt strongly about why they wanted to do something, only in the middle to get fearful and pull the ripcord on something. So in my mind, it does not make logic. Okay, so I really believe in investigative real estate. I'm kind of a detective. So that way I can find out everything and I can use their very sentences and words, not against them later when they get emotional or they get fearful or a family member says, Francis, why are you doing that? That sounds like a bad idea, because someone's going to come in and try to blow up your deal. And that's what advisors do. They advise people not to move forward because they're fearful if they tell their friend or their family member to do something and it doesn't work out, they're going to be blamed. So we have to remind people we're always taking them back to motivation. So I believe tie downs are really important. So that's kind of you guys probably have a format for a buyer consultation call. I've heard a lot of agents will just go right to the buyer's consultation, but I kind of like to be prepared. Of course, I'm finding out all their needs and wants in a house. Of course, I'm finding out their timelines. Of course, I'm finding out are there any other people that are going to be involved in this transaction that I need to know about now? Have you guys ever been through working with someone for a while? We get it down to the 2 last properties, and there's a mystery. There's a phantom uncle who lives in York, Pennsylvania, who has to drive down to Baltimore or DC on Saturday to see the house in order to give the stamp of approval. But today's Tuesday, we just saw it, they love it, and there's the threat of multiple offers. We've all been there before. So I really believe in tying down all these details so this doesn't blow up your deal, and it allows people to move forward. Maybe we can do a video walkthrough with Uncle because time is of the essence. So we get all those tie downs, and then the next step is through this introductory call, whether it's on that call or while we do the buyer consultation, I'm doing something that's called tie downs, right? Which we just talked about. And I'm getting what's called an upfront contract. So if I hear what you're saying, Tara, if we can do X, Y, and Z, you're ready to move forward and prepare an offer for the seller. Is that what I'm hearing? So I'm getting tie downs, I'm getting upfront contracts, because we know that something, if most likely, if we're lucky, it doesn't happen, but something is going to enter into the equation during the process that someone's going to try to attempt to blow up your deal, blow a hole in the psychology of your client, whether it's a buyer or a seller, and then you're going to have to reclose. It may even happen with all of these strategies, but it's kind of like tamping this situation down a little bit more securely. So when that really strong gust of wind comes through your transaction or your client, that it's tamped down, it's not going to blow away. And what we're really trying to do, guys, this is not about manipulation. I am using everything that the client fed me to endorse and to advocate to give them permission that they can move forward with something that they thought about in theory for 1 to 2 years. So everything I do from a negotiation standpoint, there's a lot of preparation to set the table so that the negotiations are actually a little easier. Because how many times did someone say in the middle of a deal, well, because of $1,000 either way, I'm going to pull the plug on this deal? And we've been looking for 3 weeks, 3 months. Hopefully it's not 3 months. We know after everything we've been through, this is the one house that really matches everything. And if we don't stay under contract, we know we're at risk of maybe this client's going to extend their lease. And we know that, we're going to get a roaring market back eventually. They're about to cut rates again, probably 2, 3, 4 more times. They're going to be stuck in a 12-month lease, not be able to get out while prices go up. Or they shop into a spring window. What's the classic? Well, I'm just going to take a break during the holidays and let's revisit this after the new year. No, we are in one of the most opportune times to go and strike gold right now because we've got a little bit of inventory. We're in a seasonal market where there's less buyers out there, and we can date the interest rate, but we want to marry the house. And you need to marry up with a lender who will do a no cost refi, because if they don't like the rate at 6% or 6.25%, we could do a lender kind of funded refi a year from now when rates drop hopefully to 5.75 or 6 or 5.5. So we got to understand what all their fears are as well, so we can best tamp that down. Then here's where we go. We're under contract now, okay? So I met them at the open. I used the Ford method to get into rapport. I used a lot of different strategies to find out what they were really looking for. We went through a really strong pre-qualification call. That really gave me a lot of information on how I'm going to curate my buyer's consultation or my listing appointment, right? I did a lot of investigative real estate, and then I reaffirmed and I tied down everything they told me. I asked them, is there anything else that I should know? I want this call to be brief. It's kind of the Reader's Digest of our appointment, but is there anything else that you would want to tell me that's important to you about that? I do what's called upfront contracts to get them to agree to what they just told me, right, that they've been thinking about for 2 years. So in their mind, logically, you can't disagree with someone that you agree with. And sometimes it's the person that's talking. They can't disagree with themselves when they just told you that's what their motive is, their motivation is. Because it would be counterintuitive that after 1 to 2 years, I do a 180 and I defy everything that I revealed to you guys as the new agent or as the repeat agent. Okay. And then that gives them permission to move forward. So when we do have the tough times, I can say, Karen, remember when we talked about how important it was for you to be in make up said subdivision, Johnson Square, because it's in the Rose Croft Middle School District, and you really wanted a minimum of 2 full baths, a flat backyard, and you love to be like 3 to 4 blocks away from school because you didn't want your son to take the bus. You would love to have the extra time to walk him to school in the morning, because that would be your special time throughout your busy day. They're going to take the bus home at the end of the day, but this would be your time to have 15 extra great minutes one-on-one with your child. Remember when you told me that when we first sat down? Has anything changed since then? Has anything changed since then? They might come up with something new. It's probably going to be something fear-based, like, well, the mortgage payment is $32 more a month than I thought. And then we're going to get into tamping that down. We're going to get into budget concerns. Well, let me ask you a question. Is there anything in your monthly budget where you could find $32 so you could give yourself permission to move forward? That's an awesome discussion. Well, let me ask you a question, Karen. Have you really factored in, yes, this was a little bit higher than you thought, but we haven't even talked about the rent versus buy equation that you're currently going through. If you pull the ripcord on this deal, we're most likely going to still have a housing payment, right? And you're going to probably renew your lease, where we talked about you didn't want to give the landlord $2,800 a month anymore, right? Well, not only is this payment right around how much you're paying rent, but I don't think you're factoring in the tax deductions. Your net mortgage payment is probably even a lot lower when you factor in the mortgage interest write-off that you're going to enjoy. So let's do the right thing. I know this is a little scary and stressful, but I wouldn't be advocating for you to move forward unless I was 100% confident it's the right decision for you. Okay, Tom, you're right. I was a little scared. Just giving you an example. Now, in the middle of the deal, I built enough rapport with my client. Okay, let's pretend I'm working on the buy side. I've built enough rapport with my client, with the lender we're using, with title, with the listing agent. I've kind of done a little, pre-qualification call with the listing agent. You'd be surprised what listing agents will tell you if you ask them. They're not required to tell you everything, but the more questions you ask, if they put up the hand and they say, I really can't talk about that, that's great. But there's no violation if you ask and they tell you what the seller's bottom line is, what the seller's motivation is. Do we truly have another offer in hand, or are you expecting one? All of those things. Do you know what I mean? Remember, Joe, when we talked and you said your seller really was hoping we're at 400,000 as a list price. The home's been sitting for 39 days. But if they could get something in the upper threes, they'd be really happy. And how close we got to it. Are we really going to allow this deal to blow up over $2,000? Sometimes you have to be the sales manager for the other agent and load their lips to go back to their client. It's really funny how a lot of agents will not dig really deep. I view this as leverage of time. Do I want to put my client back in the car, spend my time and their time? It might cost them more money. They already paid for an inspection, maybe an appraisal, when I could work both sides of this deal. So what I mean by that is I'm negotiating with everybody during a transaction. I'm talking to the listing agent, and I'm using words like, look, I really can't talk on behalf of my buyer, but let me ask you this. If I could, would you? Is kind of the strategy. So I talked to the listing agent. I'm like, look, we're at 385. I can't really respond for my client, but let me ask you a crazy question, Francis. If I could get the buyer up to 387, could you take that back to your seller and see if they would approve that deal? Could we wrap this up tonight? And we're at a list price of 400 and they've been on the market 39 days. So now the seller tells their listing agent, we're at a list price of 400. I really wanted 400, but I tell you what, I'll do 390. Okay. All right. Do you think 390 is the best that your seller will do? I do. We haven't put anything on paper yet. So before I've even asked my buyer if they would go to 387, I know that I have a deal at 390. So you understand the premise. I didn't commit to anybody. I didn't create any ethical violations. I simply said, I can't guarantee what my client will do, but if I could, would you? I'm working both sides. So then I go back to my client and I say, look, I know you're at 385 and you've kind of drawn the proverbial line in the sand, but realistically, we have not found a house in 2 months that trumps this one. This is an incredible house. Now, I don't know if the seller will accept, but let me ask you a question. Would you consider going up to 390 if we could get this deal wrapped up tonight? Tara, for $5,000, we're really talking about $30 a month in a 30-year mortgage. We're really talking about $1 a day. It's not going to change your life. You can probably find those coins in the cushions of your couch. What do you think? So I'm asking questions like this after I've built all this rapport, know, like, and trust. I've gotten all of their pre-qualifications, motivations, their thought process. I've got it in my hip pocket. I'm telling them their stories back to them. Really, for $1 a day, we would allow the house with the flat backyard that's 3 blocks away from the middle school, where your friends live 1 block away, where you just love this subdivision. Would we really risk that? Do you know what I mean? Most of the time, knock on wood, people will, through emotion and rapport and trust, they will come and meet each other in the middle. Because at the end of the day, we don't want a lopsided negotiation. We want a win-win. So I believe that's kind of my foundation for negotiations. I'm allowing all sides to feel like they got something that they won. And through that process, okay, And I'll do the same in our home inspection negotiations. Before I send a written response as the buyer's agent, I'll call the listing agent and tell them, him or her, what we're thinking, right? I almost want to get a vibe of what I'm about to put on paper before I put it on paper and it's official. Do you know what I mean? So, Joe, what do you think about, look, as we discussed, we're not going to, we're not here to make little requests and give you a 30-point inspection request. We're really focused on the major things in the house. But unfortunately, the hot water heater is showing rust at the bottom of the unit. It's still working, but by virtue of that, we do have to replace the hot water heater. I think that the roof is midlife, so we're not going to ask to replace it, but we would like to get a 1-year certification, get those some repairs done, get that roof firmed up, get those shingle tabs that blew off last winter reinstalled. Other than that, we got a couple little things, and I think we can keep this deal moving towards settlement. What do you think? I'm going to now get the vibe of the listing agent. They're going to say, hell no, we came down so low. The seller was really thinking about, selling this house as is, or Tom, that sounds really reasonable. Why don't you put that on paper and let me get that approved? So there's a lot of verbal negotiation going on before we even put things on paper sometimes, because I like knowing what the outcome of my negotiation is before I write a contract or submit a PIN or a written response, to where sometimes at the end of it, we're boxed into that corner where your only choice is the written response, whether it's you've gone down the path, there's time running out, you got to just make it happen. But I like to control as much as I control up front, because I want to know what I'm working with. Well, what if I got that response from Joe, the listing agent, and I go back to Tara, my buyer, and I say, Tara, I know as much as you want that hot water heater, darling, my fear is, because we really did strike a good deal, we got a little bit of a discount, and remember, we got you that closing help that I didn't think I could get you. And pricing out the hot water heater, it's about a $1,200 item, maybe $1,400. I'm pretty confident we're going to get a no on that request. Let me ask you a question. If I could somehow get you a home warranty in lieu of that repair, and you could budget a little bit for anything else, would that be a win for you? Rather than letting go, we've already spent $700 on inspections, and we love this house, and we're hitting a bullseye. We're right outside of a bullseye. We don't want to let this opportunity go. And then I'm repeating all of the reasons why they love this house and their motivations. So I feel like that's the better way to negotiate, rather than boxing yourself in. A lot of agents do not like to make these extra phone calls, these extra steps. They feel like it's very time consuming. They really want to go. They just want to run their business off a text message. I get that, but I feel like a 5-minute conversation, after you have everything, you have all the data that you've done through your investigative real estate. I feel like that 5-minute conversation is a huge leverage point of time versus a deal blowing up, releasing a deposit, all the addendums you're going to have to execute, putting them back in your car, and shopping again. I would rather have that time back to go then help another client. So you guys tell me, how many buyers can you work with before you start to get tapped out? We know there's a lot more leverage in listings, but still, I believe in real estate, your time is your most precious commodity. So that's how I kind of look at how I'm running my real estate business from a negotiation standpoint, and helping people make good decisions, and not allowing people to grandstand, not allowing them to get emotional. Well, if they don't do this, I'm releasing from this deal. Well, that's an emotional statement. Even if they somehow got their feathers ruffled by the other party on the other side of the transaction, whether it be the other agent, the other buyer or seller, isn't it kind of funny? Well, 35 days from now, you're going to be living in this house. You're going to be putting your foot up in your living room watching TV. You're not going to be thinking about this other seller that all of a sudden you're offended. So it's our job to not allow them to get emotionally involved in a negative way or draw lines in the sand that don't make sense or grandstand on principle. Because in the grand scheme of things on the macro level, it just doesn't matter. Our goal is to help them get to the finish line. So that's kind of my philosophy. I'd love to open it up to you guys. Any questions about what we just talked about? Any additional questions you have? We can go open forum for the next 30 minutes.
I put a question in the chat, Tom.
Oh, okay. Let me see what we got here. Let me pull up my chat. That might be a good first step. Okay. Would you ask for a 1-year home warranty or for 2 years? I would. I would. First, I would verbally ask the listing agent to ask the seller. So let's say the seller is refusing that. I would then go back to the listing agent, and this is a business decision for you, Tara. Can we take that $600 home warranty and we'll split it? And by the way, why don't we ask the title company and the lender, let's split it 4 ways. Would I keep a deal going for $150 for a home warranty when I already have an upfront agreement from my buyer? Remember, you got that agreement in your hip pocket. That buyer already said, yep, Tara, if you get me that home warranty, I will move forward. So now that I got that upfront contract, right? Remember that term. I got that upfront agreement from my client. I'm then negotiating with the other side. Joe, listing agent. Joe, I hear you that you want to sell, your seller wanted to sell the home as is, except I've got a first-time home buyer. They've been saving for 2 years. They're putting every penny they got into this deal. Let me ask you a question. I understand you don't want, they're saying no to the hot water heater. Can you go back and ask them if we could get a 2-year home warranty to keep this deal together? Well, they may come back and say, I won't do 2, but I'll do 1. Or they may come back and they'll say no. Then I'll say, well, Joe, let me ask you a question. Would you be willing to split that home warranty between myself and you on behalf of the seller? I would think logically for $300 they would. Well, now I got an upfront agreement from Joe. I'm not done yet. I'm still going back to title and lender to see if we can cut that 4 ways. So that's kind of we're always living to make one more play at the table on this. So anybody else? Tara, did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Hi, Tom. Can I come in? This is Seidel.
Hey, Seidel. Welcome.
Very
what you
nice
got for
meeting
us?
you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too.
I'm brand new to the industry, so let me put that first. So in case my question is a bit out of nowhere, but I just joined. Yeah, I've just got my license 2 weeks ago, actually. So
Excellent.
I want to go back to your point about time is of the essence, because I feel like there is trade-off between time is of the essence and then building trust with someone, because one way to build trust with people is basically to be patient with them. Because I mean, again, depends on personality. That's where the Ford is such an important method to learn. But ultimately, there is that trade-off all the way. I was wondering, like, how do you balance that? Like, you want to be focused on timing, you want to push things, you want to tie things down, but at the same time, in order to keep that trust relationship, you want to be patient as well. You want to understand the other side as well. Because I feel like once you become to a stage where you're constantly pushing things and you're kind of being at their back, that's where kind of the trust erodes. What do you think?
Well, we want to be patient with our clients, but as professionals, here's the thing. In big decisions, we think about making a big decision for a long time, but we can always say, well, I could kick that can down the road another month or 2 and it won't change the outcome. That's what we think logically, right? And when it comes to the moment of truth, after you've thought about buying a house for 2 years, you've been test driving neighborhoods before you even looked at a home on realtor.com, you know, or Zillow, before you even stepped inside of an open house, it's sometimes the moment of truth of, okay, it's time to shift this, what you want to do from theory to reality. And that's where a lot of people get stuck. So don't confuse honoring your client and being patient with them through, you have to be skilled enough to know the difference between, are they delaying the inevitable, and could they actually self-sabotage their position in their purchase by just kicking the can down the road? Or do you really just have to give them a little time and space? Now, we're not here to pressure them unduly. That would be getting out of rapport. Once we get out of rapport, that's going to erode trust. So you are walking a tightrope with those two thoughts. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's where it gets, at least from my personal view, it gets a bit tricky. How do you keep that balance? Because, but I'm sure that will come with practice, I guess. But
Yeah.
as many people as you meet, then you kind of understand how to approach each one. But I feel like, yeah, at the beginning, that might be an issue. Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Yeah, and just to expand on your comment, how you get there is through what we talked about. It's through a rapport-based, you know, building a relationship fast, unless there's someone that you've known for a long time, and through investigative real estate of finding out everything about them, what drives them from the Ford method, and what's also motivating them about the actual purchase and property and likes and dislikes. So once they have told you everything, it's a logic-based way to work with a client and to negotiate. I just come from a place of, well, Stephanie, we talked for like 20 minutes on the phone when we first got to know each other. It sounded like we were a good match to work together. Then I spent an hour with you at the Panera Bread. I bought you a cup of coffee, and we expanded that conversation for an hour, hour and a half. And then I really focused on delivering to you what you had trained me up on as an agent about what would make this a great outcome for you, and what would it mean for you to meet your real estate goals in 2025. So I just got to ask, and this is when you do the Columbo, right? You guys remember that old show, Columbo was a detective? Well, after he interrogated someone, he always walked out the door and he said, oh, there's one more thing. Because now the person he was interviewing said, phew, I'm off the hot seat now. So they let their guard down. And the Columbo is, you scratch your head and you go, and you ask that compelling question, you know, what's changed since you gave me all that information? So it's one of two things. Either there could be new information, right? And that's legit. Hey, I'm really fearful. I hear they're cutting back my department. I'm really fearful I'm going to make this big purchase and I won't have a job in 3 months. I get it. So that's where we would pull out a rapport with them if we continue to be pressure filled. Or it could be, most likely 9 times out of 10, 8 times out of 10, it's going to be fear or emotion about the moment of truth. Okay. So I'm going to give you guys something else. Have you guys heard of the acronym LP Mama before? If you only learn 2 scripts, you can talk to anybody with the Ford method and LP Mama. Anybody? Put it in the chat. Say yes or no. Never heard of LP Mama. What the heck is that? Or I know what it is. Okay. Brielle said yes. I love it. I love it. We got a little nose. We got a never heard of it. We got one person said, Tom, you're crazy. What's LP Mama? You're making up words now. All right. So LP Mama. Write this acronym down. Ready? Because I know you can't spell it, because if you've never heard of it before, I'm going to give it to you. It's LPMAMA. Tell me when you guys have that down. Give me a thumbs up in the chat. Because it could be MOMA, but it's not. It's LPMAMA. Okay? So the L stands for, now continue to take some notes. The L stands for location. The P stands for price. The M stands for mortgage. The A stands for agent. The M stands for motivation. And there's one more A here. Oh, amenities. I almost forgot. And you can swap out the A's however you want, but that's LP Mama. If you master LP Mama and Ford, guys, you can talk to any new prospect, and they will think you are the best listener and asking so many important questions, and you're all about them and meeting their real estate goals. So I would say through everything that we talked about through Ford, LP Mama, everything we talked about, you're going to be in a rapport-based negotiation, because all I'm doing is supplying back their dreams, their motivations, what they want in a property, what's important to them, back to them. Like I said, the theory is very logic-based. It's hard to disagree with someone that agrees with you. And then usually, knock on wood, there's always hybrid, crazy little situations. But then you're trying to narrow it down to a point of where you're either getting a new objection that you haven't handled yet, or they're being fearful or emotional. That whole philosophy should give you a really high conversion rate from open house guests to them being a client, from them signing an agreement to settlement. I actually had a woman 15 years ago through this method. She loved the house I showed her, and at the end I was dropping her off at her high-rise condominium rental, and she just said, "I'm really sorry, but I just can't do this." And she just burst out in tears, ran out of my car, and never returned my call again. Ultimately, it was fear-based, and she was so scared to move forward, I couldn't even get her on the phone again. It happens. I moved on to the next client. She's wonderful, a wonderful person. I never got to help her out. But sometimes people just, it's just like marrying your sweetie. Sometimes people date, they get engaged, they know this is the right thing to do, they get all the way to the aisle, and they leave the church and they run in the opposite direction. Sometimes people are just fearful of commitment. So what else do you guys got? Any questions about negotiations that you would like? What's kind of the toughest situation you've had recently?
Hi, Tom. Can I ask a question?
Please do.
Goes
Hi,
back to something
Victoria.
you said earlier. Hi, how are you?
Yeah,
Thanks for this,
good.
all this good information this morning. You mentioned lining up somebody, the whole date the rate thing, lining up somebody with a no point refi or something like that. So that's something I'm new also, so forgive me. I've never heard of that. Can you elaborate a little bit on that being an actual
I can just
thing?
speak to our team's lending partner, and I would say most lenders probably have programs like this, but our team's lending partner, for people that are rate conscious, we're talking about the cost of waiting. So if someone is tying their hopes and dreams about moving forward with purchasing a house because the rates are too high, well, first off, our lender offers a 12-month 1-point rate reduction for 12 months. So if we're at 6.25 today, for no extra cost to the buyer, that buyer can get over that fear of interest rate reluctance, because they're going to purchase their property today at 5.25. And then in theory, we can show them how rates have been dropping over the last several months, and that we have 12 months to date the rate, but we're going to marry the house, because the rate is just one little factor of the equation. Now, I can only speak to the Baltimore Metro, but we went up 3.5% to 4% in 2025. So why would someone want, and we probably went up 5 to 7% the year before, and so on and so forth. So we've had a lot of people on the fence that we don't even know that have sat on the sidelines for 3 years while property values went up 10 to 15% because they didn't like an interest rate. they might have cost themselves $50,000 to $100,000 because they were only keying in on one part of the buying equation. They missed out on future appreciation, which I just mentioned. They missed out on principal reduction, right? Because there's going to be a portion of that mortgage payment that's going to principal reduction every month. They missed out on tax advantages, right? Your transfer and your recording fees, other things local that you can write off in your taxes at the end of the year, the mortgage interest write-off, et cetera, et cetera. We know a mortgage, there's a reason why in the first 7 years it's more heavily weighted towards interest, because the banks know the average person lives in a home for 7 to 10 years, sometimes 3 to 5. So they want to get a heavily more weighted amount of interest paid up front. So then when you get to years 10, years 20, more money is hitting principal. Well, you can get out at any kind of mortgage calculator that you can get your hands on, and you can see in a $3,000 a month mortgage, there might be $2,000 before property taxes, escrows, and a little bit of principal going towards interest every month. Well, then if you get skilled enough to ask your client what tax bracket they're in, and let's just say the lowest tax bracket or a lower tax bracket would be 22%. You can find out, hey, look, do you make between 80 and 100,000, 100 to 125? You can go onto irs.gov and find out what the different tax brackets are and where your client would be if you've built enough rapport. And hopefully that won't be like secret information. They can share with you what they make per year. But let's just pretend for this, it's $2,000 a month times 12 months. That's $24,000 a year they're going to pay in interest. And if we say 24,000 times 0.22, that means they would actually get $5,280 in real savings off of their tax return. Now we've had some people wait 2 years, so now we're up to $10,500. And then if you factor in the amount of appreciation over those years, then if you factor in the amount of money that they would have paid down the loan, then if you factor in, if we take how much they would have stayed in a high cost rental for 2 years, we can really create a rapport-based, compelling, data-driven story as to why it makes no logical sense not to move forward because of the cost of waiting. So I would invite you guys to learn more about cost of waiting. So you kind of get my drift. I'm always trying to figure out what is an evidence rapport-based method to put logic and almost make it like a no-brainer conversation with your client so that they can give themselves permission to move forward. And when they look at all that, they go, what was I so scared about? Exactly. So I gave you a long-winded answer to your question, but I wanted to tell you guys about cost of waiting because it's really something every agent should know about.
Yeah. Hey, Tom, Beatrice.
Hello, Beatrice.
Hey. Too often what we hear with the sellers is that where will I move? But they don't understand in this market that their price point or their return on once they sell it, their bottom line or what they're going to walk away from the table with. Once they put that down, their mortgage will even be less because they're putting a large payment down to reduce that mortgage rate. But they don't see that. A lot of sellers are thinking, I can't find anything because prices are high, interest is high, but you don't understand. You're walking into a better situation than the buyers are because you have a product that is now on the market probably above 3% above what you probably paid for. And when you go to sell it, that money can go down, put down as a down payment to reduce your monthly mortgage. So yeah, it's the hard explanation of what you have in hand that once you do sell it, you can find something out there. It's just, like you said, having the right script to help them to understand you do have a bird in hand.
Yeah, and I think it was a tougher conversation 2 years ago because inventory was so low, right? And we
Mm-hmm.
were doing things like buy before you sell. There's different loan programs like that for people with equity. We get it, Beatrice. We don't want you to feel like you're going to be homeless. Knock on wood, no one's been homeless on my watch all the years I've been in real estate. It just generally all works out. We can sell with a home of choice contingency. We can get creative. We don't sell houses, guys. We sell options. We're problem solvers.
Right. Right.
So when you come at the business from a place of being a problem solver, we get paid to create unique solutions for people. Because anybody with, a heartbeat can get a real estate license. I think the true professionals are problem solvers, and we're kind of real estate therapists, right? And I think that's really where we earn our commission.
So true. So true.
Yeah, yeah. What else, guys?
Hey Tom, quick question on the cost of waiting that you were
Yes.
talking about. Is there a particular resource we can go to learn a little bit more about that or anything like that?
Yes. If you want to download in the App Store the Envoy Mortgage app, there is Envoy's ENVOY. There is a section in the Envoy app that will help you calculate cost of waiting. And if we had a little bit longer, I could do a whole training just on the cost of waiting and actually hand cranking the numbers with a client during the buyer agency consultation. It's really powerful because I'm a believer in the evidence of what we're talking about. And when it's in black and white and we're actually going through the numbers for their particular situation, it's really compelling. Maybe I can give Allison one of my cost of waiting worksheets. And Allison, would you be able to send that to everybody that signed up for the class?
I think I can.
You got everyone's email address, right?
I'll double check.
Okay. If
So
for
I
some
actually
reason
don't 100% know, but I can definitely figure it out.
And for some reason we can't do that or we don't know how, I'm sure we can. I'm happy to come back before Christmas or right after the new year and do just a cost of waiting training because I think it is so powerful. When you are armed with these kind of tools, guys, you separate yourselves from the other agents they're interviewing. You will convert more people. And it's not about, like I said, it's giving them permission to move forward with data. Now they're going, oh, what was I so scared about? Wow, that really isn't the best move for me to renew my lease at $2,800 a month with my landlord. I'm paying down their mortgage. Maybe I should start paying mine down.
I have another question, unless somebody else
Yeah,
does.
go for it.
I've already asked one.
That's okay.
So in the scenario, and it's happened twice. Once I'm helping another realtor with Keller Williams Capital Properties, and she's been a friend of mine for a long time, so she's bringing me on some of her deals. But what about these people that bought in 2022 and 2023, and now they're getting relocated or they've lost their jobs and they're trying to get out? And they think that they can get out without losing money. And it's really, it doesn't look good. They have no equity. And there's seems like I just encountered a second one today who wanted to have a conversation with me. And I looked and it's like, what do you do?
Well, first of all, at KWCP, we have a really powerful tool that almost nobody else has, and that's the Home Sale Plus tool, to where we can get true, price discovery on a listing. And through all of this rapport-based selling, working with the buyer's agents, you're the listing agent, really working the system, getting to know how that works. If anyone's going to get a seller above market value, it's going to be us versus using the traditional pricing method of, we agree what we think is market value, you owe 20,000 more, we're stuck. But through the Flex Bid and the Home Sale Plus philosophy of taking market value, let's say they owe 500 and it's worth 490, plus they got closing costs and commission. If we reduced the list price of what we think is market value by about 25%, we're going to be able to get what the actual true value is. And the worst thing that's going to happen is maybe we help those people buy a house in their new market. We send out an outgoing referral, and we agree that it's not us that failed. It's just the market's not quite ready for the price that they need. And we list their house next year and we see how things go. Or once they've seen 6, 7, 8, 10 offers come through the platform, maybe now they've gotten the evidence they need to go, all right, well, if you can get the buyer up 10 more grand, I'm going to bring 10 grand to the table. And I don't want to move to Dallas with still owning this property in Maryland. It's really hard for people to make tough decisions if they haven't engaged in the process, or they've got the data or the evidence of the market. So I think it just requires us to roll up our sleeves and, like I said, really put data in front of people. And not everybody's going to say, I'll take the loss.
Yeah, and let me add a little bit to that. We did use Home Sale Plus, and it was one of my first jobs to field the calls for that listing.
Yeah.
So that was fun because a lot of agents have no idea how to use it, and they get very angry. And then people that are not represented think that that's the actual price. So it was challenging. And in the end, we didn't get the number that we wanted. So now we're still on the market back up. So it was not successful. I'm sure it could be in a lot of situations, but also it's a learning curve for agents out there. So just going into it, like really taking a class, we talked to the people, we took their little class, we watched their videos, but when agents, the buyer's agents would come in, they just didn't know how to use it.
Well, I'm happy to role play that with you for 5 minutes.
Sure.
Why don't you be the buyer's agent, the distraught buyer's agent? I'm the listing agent on your client's property. All right.
Okay.
All right. Ring, ring.
Wait. Okay. Hi. This is Victoria Bruce with Keller Williams Capital Properties.
Yeah. Hi, Victoria. It's Tom Atwood. How you doing today?
Hi, Tom. I have a buyer who's really interested in your listing on Baker Street.
Yeah. Awesome. What can I do for you?
Well, I'm just, clearly I'm wondering like why the price dropped by $100,000 and like what's going on with that. I really don't understand.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to help you out with that. Just by chance, did you happen to review the agent remarks in the listing? I just want to make sure I'm not telling you something you already know.
Well, it said something about like, is this an auction? What kind of thing is it? I don't know. Is it a straight auction? I've never used it before.
No problem. So it says in the remarks that the list price acts as an introductory offering price. And with the seller in this market, just like a lot of people, they're a little unclear on what the market value is of the house. So they're using this method to actually achieve what's called price discovery. So everyone's coming out, and you're just going to love the process once you learn about it. What's super cool is you can come to our open house with your client on Saturday. We're going to be open from 12 to 3. And if they like the house, it's really super easy to use the platform. All you have to do is upload their pre-approval to get approved for the platform. And then if they'd like to make a bid, it's not an auction. They're going to it's an online transparent platform where not only you and your buyer, you're going to get to see all the other offers that the other people in the market are placing. And so unlike traditional real estate, everything is transparent. Now, it's not technically like an auction. I can see how it could be thought that way. An auction is more of a sequential bidding system, like I'm bidding 500, then 501, then 502. You can imagine yourself with the auctioneer's voice in the back of your head. This is more like, hey, it might not be the highest price that wins the bid. It could be term related. Who knows? But it could be strength of buyer. But this allows everyone to compete and see what's going on. And the best thing about it, Victoria, is you don't have to write a 50-page contract. You just upload your pre-approval and you type in your offer terms. What do you think about that?
Well, that sounds good, Tom. I'll give it a try. So I believe, okay, I try.
Yep.
I come back later. The platform itself, we talked about the transparency and not having to write another offer. Everybody waited till the last day, so we didn't get any momentum starting to build up, right? So at the we literally had the last day, and then and then we got aggravated agents on the other side, because then you can also extend the auction or extend the term, so it felt very squishy, to be honest with me. And then also the net to seller is what shows up, I believe. And you have to pass the net to seller, and it's like the reserves in an auction, right?
Right. We can't make a bid below the net to seller.
So let's just say I put the numbers in, it just doesn't go, right? And then so finally we get up to a point where net to seller has their amount, but we're still 60 grand under what the client was hoping for. And then at the last minute we had two offers that sort of rose to the top, and tried to give them a best and final between those last two, and still were like 40 grand under what we needed. So but also the transparency of it, I felt was, maybe I didn't look at it. Let's just say I'm pretty computer savvy, and it was pretty difficult for me to understand what exactly, and maybe because I didn't have a bid in myself, but I only saw this net to seller, or I only saw they didn't give the term.
You can click on the buyer's agent's bid, and it'll expand it to show
everything. Okay.
Contract price, commissions, everything, and the net to seller.
So anyway, for people who haven't done it, I would just say do a lot of homework, because it's not super user friendly, and a lot of agents have no idea how to use it when they come into it. None of them had used it.
If I could, I would just challenge you to consider. I think you need more familiarity with it. It is very user friendly, but it's like anything. Could you load your own listing the first time? It probably felt a little clunky, right?
Yeah.
Same kind of thing. It's just about familiarity. Now, I will say, guys, on the platform, using Victoria's example, let's say how many people did you have registered to bid on that particular property?
I think 3 or 4 total.
Okay.
Maybe 3.
So you can't just let the platform do all the heavy lifting. I would invite you to consider that if I know that we're getting 2-3 days before the end of the sale, no one's placed a bid yet, I'd be calling one agent and say, hey, look, I know people are kind of waiting to the end, but there's no reason not to put your bid on the platform now, because I just want to remind you, Victoria, the seller could take an offer immediately and shut this thing down. So I will say that to everybody, and 9 times out of 10, someone's going to put a bid there. Then I'm going to call the 2 people that didn't place a bid yet. I'm going to say, hey, I don't know if you saw that an agent did place an offer on the platform. The seller they reviewed your pre-approval letter, and they really think you're a strong buyer. I would encourage you to go ahead. What was your client thinking about offering? Yeah, I'd put that on the platform. And then I'm calling the 3rd registered buyer and doing the same thing. Then I'm going back to showing time, and I'm calling all of the showing agents saying, hey, I don't know if you realize I got great feedback from you that your client really liked the house. Were you thinking about placing an offer? And I don't even tell them that there's 3 offers on the platform yet, because they haven't even gone to the platform. Yeah, we are thinking about registering. And so I'm working it. And you'll get better results from still doing your magic. Think of the platform as a tool to help you, but it won't replace you. And then guess what? I'm not going to allow people to get upset when we extend. I'm going to call everyone back and say, hey, look, we're about an hour away from the sale ending. I just want to let you know there's still some other buyers still trying to get their act together and talking to their lenders and things like that. In all fairness, I just want to let you know, because I don't want you to be upset when you see this happen. We've decided we're going to extend this to 8 p.m. tomorrow to give everyone some time to finish up their due diligence. Now, towards the end of the sale, do you guys know that every time someone updates an offer, it automatically extends the bidding by like 10 or 15 minutes? That could take you to midnight sometimes. So the goal is just to really work this thing. And if you got my message of negotiating with everybody. Now I'm working agents against agents. Hey, I don't know if the seller would, but I gotta think if you would put in a compelling offer, they might end the bidding now. I never said that they wouldn't. I don't have the power to say that, but my goal is to get, and then I've get some agents say, I'm not using this platform. I'm just going to send you a contract. Well, I'm really sorry. It does state in the remarks, the seller has instructed me to have all offers placed on the platform, because you wouldn't want someone to put a compelling offer in and it doesn't gin up everybody on the platform. So sometimes I got to prevent people from, well, yeah, we're submitting tonight. Oh, I think they mean they're writing a 50-page contract. I better call that agent. So there's a lot of nuance there. And it's just about learning the system, doing a couple more of these, figuring out the game within the game. And like anything else, you're going to get more familiar and your skill's going to level up on it.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's a great way to do it. As a new agent, I would love to not have to write a 50-page contract and use this method and have the transparency and all that. It's just that for us going out there with it, just be prepared, because a lot of people aren't. And then also some buyers were angry that, that weren't represented. And, even though, because, they didn't understand the process at all. So the unrepresented
Now, did you reach out to those buyers? Because you would get to write the contract for them,
I
right?
did. Yeah, I did. I followed
Now,
up.
why were they angry?
Because it wasn't the price point they were looking at all, like what we were shooting for. So they were.
Well, no problem, Victoria. Did you happen to read the remarks in the MLS? This was really just a method to get price discovery. And I would advise that, when people say, well, what's the seller looking for? We never tell them, obviously. We say, I don't know. They're looking for price discovery. The best advice I can give you is to look at what the most recent market-based comparable sales are. And that's probably where this thing could head. But I don't know. Someone might get a deal here. What were you thinking about offering? Well, it's a $500,000 house and they want to offer $410,000. Well, I mean, anything's possible, but I would just say there's probably a good chance that the results will be higher than that. Victoria, let me ask you a question. If you really did like this property, what's kind of your ceiling on price?
Probably 415, 420.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. How did you arrive at that number?
My lender told me that.
Gotcha.
I'm pre-approved.
Okay. Well, looking at the comparables, it does
actually
look like,
the real scenario. Sorry, I remember now. The real scenario was they were looking at new construction. So even though I tried to pitch myself as as a possible buyer's agent, this is a bunch of townhomes. They're doing a whole nother development right next to it. People are trying to sell from 2020, 2023 builds. So it's they can walk right over there and then get all what they think is a good idea, a good deal,
and you can't sell a 3-year-old townhome for the same price as something brand new, and most likely
with all the
builders offering $20,000 or $25,000 in benefit.
Not easy.
So,
but I like all your ideas, and I'm learning.
Yeah. Well, guys, last call for questions. We went 9 minutes over. Anything else you guys have a burning desire to ask?
I do. I have one question.
Go for it, Tara.
Thank you so much. First of all, this has been really informative. I really do appreciate all the advice that you've given today. And
you're welcome.
I do have a question. Once your offer is accepted on homesalesplus.com, do you then write a contract? Is that what's required or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So as a listing agent, once I'm just speaking from the listing agent side, once let's say I have 8 offers and the seller has selected one, I will verbally determine, let me just make sure I got all your comments, Tara, all your notes. Can you text me all the deal points of your offer? I just want to make sure we're a go. And then I will ask you to prepare that and put that in writing. And once I have the full contract and the seller and I have reviewed it and we're a go, then I will have it noted that the seller has accepted an offer. because we don't want to prematurely select an offer and then we get surprised, or we didn't call the lender to make sure they're fully approved, or things of that nature. But on the buyer agent side, yes, we may tell you that, like, in theory, it looks like the seller's going in your direction. Now it's time to put pen to paper and submit the offer to us.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. You're welcome. All right, guys, 111. We'll end it there, and I'll get my cost of waiting worksheet out to you guys, and we can always train around that so we can go step by step with it. Have a great rest of your week. Talk to you guys soon.